Welcome back to the Back Office Podcast, the show that goes beyond highlight reels and into the real decisions that shape a business behind closed doors. Because great businesses are not just built out front, they're built in the back office, in the financial calls, the operational choices, the planning, the pressure, and the decisions owners make when no one else is watching. This podcast is for business owners who want to make smarter decisions, build stronger companies, and create something that lasts for the long haul. And today, we're digging into one of the biggest questions a business owner can face. How do you build wealth beyond the business, turn your company into a real long-term asset, and create options for the future?
Yeah, and today we have joining us Neil Connolly to have a conversation about wealth and legacy and future planning, what owners should really be thinking about as a lot of business owners start going and gaining traction and trying to understand how do we avoid tying our entire future financially to just one asset and what it's really like to build a business that you can eventually step back from, transition or exit, or that just keeps on kind of generating for you because your business may be your biggest asset today, but it shouldn't be your only plan for the future. And today we're going to have Neil Connolly here. I'm super excited to have you, Neil. Neil is a friend of mine. I got to know him really, almost, I guess a year and a half ago, Neil, when we went down to North Carolina with the group that we work out with. And we were doing the Blue Ridge Relay, 200 and like glorious miles through the mountains of North Carolina.
Right.
In a van with a couple of other dudes, and we took different turns rucking. So we had, did you have 30 pounds in your bag, Neil?
Oh, yeah. Would you have 60? Is that why you asked?
60 lightweight. Yeah. No, I did the 30. That 30 was the minimum. I think everybody pretty much stuck to the 30. And one of the great memories that I have from Neil, it was really the first time that I'd met him. And we had already been in a van. You get to know somebody pretty well when you're in a van 24 hours. And we're going through this one patch of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And as one of our friends was trailing behind us and we were going up to the next checkpoint, and he's going up and we're all just talking, had some music playing. And he was like, holy crap, what is that? Guys, that's a bear right there in this meadow where our friend was going to be coming up beside us. Like, what do we do? And Neil just caught it, out of the corner of his eye. He was driving and he was like, we can't let our friend come up here and get mauled by a bear. And as we're sitting there watching, this bear strolls down into the ditch on the side of the road and starts messing with something. And he opened up a honeycomb, a beehive, and all these bees are buzzing around. And we're like, our buddy's going to come get stung by 1,000 bees and mauled by a bear. And Neil was like, we can't do that. We're going to go back down. We'll drive right beside him up until we're like a quarter mile away. Don't tell the race moderators. But he got in our van for like a quarter mile past the bear point and then got back out. And so it was a pretty good time. But right there, Neil was just looking out and probably saved Woody's life at that point and gotten to know him better ever since. And Neil's just looking out for people all the time. So Neil, welcome, man. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Joe. And great story and absolutely no embellishment there. Our friend would have walked right past the beehives and the bear that had been attacked by the bees. So yeah, it's a moment I'll always remember.
Yeah, that was a great trip. Lots of fun stories on that. But why don't you give us just a little bit of background about yourself, kind of what you do, what you're doing, and how you got to this point?
Yeah, appreciate that. So I spent 25 years with large financial brokerage institution, doing everything from customer service to financial advisory to leading a financial advisory team. I'm from Denver, from Colorado originally, and I spent a good 20 years there. And then I was asked to look at Kansas City for an opportunity to manage some branches out here and manage a very large team of financial advisors. And so my wife and I took the opportunity and really, really love it out here. And our son is thriving in high school. The school system, the community is just fantastic in Kansas City metro area. So through that process, I ended up transitioning away from a leadership role with that big company and really went back to what I loved, which was meeting with clients, meeting with business owners, meeting with just regular everyday people who are looking for different financial solutions, different strategies so that they can retire and reach their dreams. I got my certified financial planning designation in 2017. By that time, I had already moved into a leadership management role. So I led and coached a team with those concepts in mind, but I never used it in day-to-day face-to-face meetings with clients. So over the last 2.5 years, I've had the opportunity to do that. And it's just so eye-opening. I'm a small business owner myself. It's currently my wife and it's our LLC. We're part of Rigdon Capital Strategies, and we focus on financial planning, comprehensive financial planning for business owners and individuals, and then investment management in conjunction with that financial plan.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And I guess the really important question is you moved out from Denver to Kansas City. So you've obviously given up your love for the Broncos, right?
Well, I see the flag in the background of Zach's office there.
Got my
and I know
Chiefs
that
cup here.
most of the people that are listening are probably Chiefs fans. So what I will say is absolutely not. I am a diehard bleed orange Broncos fan. I'm happy to have given up a lot of things about living in Colorado, but
yeah, fair. Hey, I'm glad you're sticking to your roots, even if they're not great. So yeah, Zach.
We have enough bandwagon fans around these areas sometimes, so it's good to see somebody that moved here and didn't jump the bandwagon too.
Yeah, it's not my blood to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I was really excited when Joe was like, "Hey, we're gonna have Neil Connolly on here." He gave me a little bit of background, and I was like, "What questions do I have?" And so, really the one question I have centers around timing, and timing's so huge with what we're doing with like marketing and advertising. But when you come from the financial aspect, when a business owner moves from surviving to thriving, what is kind of that first financial milestone that they should address? And when is that moment in time? Is it during survive mode? Is it during thrive mode? When's the best time for somebody to kind of look at your services and look at financial planning?
Yeah, a great question. I think you start it when you're in survive mode, maybe even at the start. And it's as simple as thinking about different ways to save your money and to reduce your tax burden and to really make your business work for you, to create that wealth for you after you sell your business or when you want to retire, or if you want to attract new employees and new talent, even though that might not be in the cards right at the beginning. There's a lot of ways that really don't do anything to begin to plan for that. So small business owners have an amazing set of tools given to them that often go unused. There's a number of different retirement plans that are focused on small business owners that allow them to save a large portion of their income and shield that from taxation and prepare for their financial future. But also it's that preparation that you can take at the beginning or kind of in the first couple of years to make sure that when you are thriving, that everything is running appropriately, efficiently, and you're optimizing every area of your life. So, for instance, a small business owner can set up a solo 401k. Themselves and their spouse can participate in the solo 401k, and you can shelter over $70,000 a year into a solo 401k, depending on the structure of your company. 35 to 40,000 of that can be Roth. So that means that it's never going to be taxed again, and that's an advantage that literally nobody else has. And so it's something that you can set up kind of right away. But even if it doesn't end up being a 401k, solo 401k, there are a number of different plans that people can investigate, open. You don't even have to fund these things. You just have it set up so it's ready to go when that extra income is available, or get to the end of the year and you need to reduce your revenue or your taxable income by a certain amount. If you have these things set up, you can make that contribution and help out your situation. And another thing is that what we see a lot is reticence to put together a financial plan in conjunction with your business plan because of the cost, or I don't need that kind of thing. And really, it's a matter. It's smart to do it at the beginning, because if you can understand what's available to you, and understand how you can build that legacy for yourself and your family outside of the business, many of these things can be done at no cost. I mean, we've all heard of low cost exchange traded funds and mutual funds that you can invest in. You participate in the market. It doesn't cost you a penny. You don't need to necessarily have somebody that's managing that for you, and you're paying them a lot of money in management fees. But just the advice to, hey, this is what I would do with your next dollar, with your next retirement savings dollar. Put it here and invest in this. You can get that with appropriate financial planning. Another thing that I see a lot, and it'll probably come up again in the future, is cash drag. So once somebody becomes successful, once they move from surviving to thriving, you end up with a lot of cash. And business owners like to keep a lot of cash around for emergencies, pay staff, whatever it is. And once it gets to a point where there's more than enough, I see it just sitting in these accounts, these low interest bank accounts, and it creates this tax drag. Plus, you're getting taxed on it. You're not getting an appropriate market rate. And there's a number of different things that people can do if they do some planning at the beginning to prepare for that eventuality.
Neil, I have a few questions for you based on that. One is, you said, I love the point that you made. Zach asked, hey, when should they start? They're starting to get money. When should they actually start putting money away? You're like, start a financial plan now, which I think is counterintuitive for a lot of people who didn't grow up hearing about these kind of things, right? A lot of the clients that we deal with are largely in the service industries. They went to work maybe right out of high school, did an apprenticeship, and went to work for somebody, and haven't really heard a lot of this. Maybe they had some kind of 401k that they were investing into, and then went off and started their own thing, and haven't really heard a ton about this. So I think just even hearing, start before you even start making a ton of money is helpful. How do you even get started, right, at these when it feels like I need every dime?
Right.
How do I do that?
Yeah, I think it's engaging with someone who can show you what those tools that you have that are available to you, and then giving you guidance on how you can get started with those kind of from day one. Oftentimes there's a number of different financial firms out there that will allow you to open an account, even a solo 401k account, for free. Like, it doesn't cost you anything to set it up. It just takes a little bit of your time. You don't have to fund it. But there's a lot of different tools that people can investigate before they get started with all this. And it's just a matter of creating that awareness. And even if it's not a today thing, but a tomorrow thing, at least you kind of know and you can prepare. You mentioned maybe not knowing about these sorts of opportunities at small business owners' disposal, but possibly having a 401k from a previous employment, or you move from a W-2 corporate world to running your own business. If you know in advance what the power of some of these retirement plans are for small business owners, you can utilize those assets that you may have saved up and has just forgotten about, or you left them in your former company's 401k plan. Those can become an asset that you can use to grow your business. But you have to kind of investigate it and look at those sorts of things in advance to know what's available to you.
Yeah. So Neil, I mean, I'm really fascinated right now. I think when you talk about the 401ks, what are like the benefits between a 401k that I have versus a 401k option that a business has? Are they different, or is it just leveraging them differently?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, the 401k itself is just a corporate retirement plan structure that has its own tax implications and tax rules associated with it. It's available to any company, whether you're a sole proprietor all the way to a C Corp. There's a lot of variation in how it might work depending on how many employees you have, and that can get really complex. If you're getting started with a business, you can open up a 401k plan. It would work exactly like it did at other places that you worked at. There's very high contribution limits. You can put your money into the traditional side of it, which reduces your tax your tax burden. You can put it into the Roth side of it. You can move money between the two and really get it to work like you want it to. Oftentimes, I think, and plus, you're in control of the investments too. So you don't necessarily have to just choose from. When you work for that big corporation, you get 10 different things you can invest in, and that was kind of it. With these sorts of plans, you can customize it to fit your needs and what your family's legacy looks like. That's just the 401k thing. And then there are some ways, if you ever work for a company and you saved in the 401k plan and something happened, you wanted to put a down payment on your first home, or some bills got out of control for you. Life happened. We've all heard of, and I've taken on myself, is a 401k loan. Well, that's available to small business owners too. So if you have this 401k, maybe you work for somebody and you got $100,000 in a 401k and you just forgot about it, or I can't do anything with it. I'll just leave it there. You can actually roll that into your own your solo 401k. And if you needed extra capital to fund your business, you can actually take a loan from yourself through that solo 401k. And when you pay, you still have to pay it back, but you're paying yourself back. So it's an asset that kind of goes a little bit, it's forgotten, or people don't really know about that sort of thing.
So I think of
Yeah.
people who I've met, a lot of people recently who are in the corporate world. They have their 9 to 5, and they're just ready to do something different. And a number of people who are starting franchises. And I mean, would this be something that would be helpful for somebody like that who's starting a franchise, or somebody who is, hey, I've worked for a plumber for the last 13 years. I'm ready to go and start my own plumbing business now. Would it work for both? Would it work for just one or the other?
It
What
would
are your
work for
thoughts?
both. That sort of strategy and just retirement plan development and planning would work for any business.
Okay. Yeah. So for that, I mean, are there times that you see people make mistakes in that, over borrow or under borrow, or just don't even know about it? I mean, do most people know about this? Because it was news to me.
Yeah, I would say that people generally don't know about it. Um, it's always been a little bit murky. The off the shelf kind of free versions of a solo 401k you can get through some of the larger firms that are out there, retail brokerages, don't always have a lot of all the features in it. So the implication was, well, I have to go talk to an attorney to have this stuff written up for me, and that's going to cost thousands of dollars, and it's a huge hassle. And I'm not going to lie that I'm not saying this is the easiest thing in the world, but if you have somebody that can help you, that knows the ropes. These days there are companies where literally in probably about 3 days you can get a solo 401k set up for your business that allows you to make contributions to a Roth, traditional IRA, do a mega backdoor Roth sometime in the future, and be able to take a 401k loan. And it's very low cost, and it takes only a small amount of time. And if you have somebody who's helping you with it, who's committed to incorporating it into your financial plan, then oftentimes someone like me will do that stuff for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to double click on just one thing that I think maybe could have just went under the radar. When you said, when you take out a 401k loan, if you're able to do that and you have the right situation, you reach out to somebody reputable like yourself that can help through that situation. You mentioned pay yourself back. You're paying yourself back on the loan. Can you just explain and kind of hit that point? Because I think that's maybe a little bit different than like a small business loan or any other loans that somebody might take out, especially if they have invested for over the years and they're ready to take that leap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great thing to focus on, and it's often overlooked. So a 401k loan there's certain rules around it, but let's just take a common situation. If you have $100,000 in a 401k from a previous employer, you open up your own solo 401k, you can roll that money in. The rules around it's ERISA, so it's the rules that the government puts on retirement plans. You can borrow 50% of the value of the okay, or $50,000, whichever is less. So in that example, you could borrow $50,000 from your the 401k trustee, which is that business owner, cuts themselves a check, they deposit it into their account. they've got to pay it back on a particular schedule that's defined before you make the loan. But every time they send in their loan repayment, usually there's going to be a regular payment of the principal plus usually around a 7% interest rate that's imposed upon it. And then you send in your quarterly checks to pay off the 401k loan. Well, it's just going back into the 401k where you're just investing it. You just continue to invest it. It doesn't hit your credit. It's a completely private transaction that, as long as you follow the repayment schedule, there's no other strings attached.
So you're saving 7% of a loan, basically.
Yeah. So you're taking it out, you're using it for your own purposes. It's got to be paid back usually within 5 years. So you have your amortization schedule of paying back the principal and plus the 7% interest on it periodically. And then it just goes back into your 401k plan. And then you can pick it up and reinvest it however you like.
I think that would be a game changer for a lot of small businesses, right?
Kind of mind blown a little bit.
Because we work with small businesses all the time, and I don't know that I've ever heard somebody talk about this. I hear a lot of guys, even as they're first getting started, hey, I'm going to go, get an SBA loan. And that's really the only option that I have. And I met a lot of guys also who have started businesses. And I mean, I sold my wife's minivan, things like that, which is that founder story that we as Americans love to hear, right? But maybe it would be less sexy, but cooler to hear, I borrowed from my own 401k, and the wife wouldn't be as angry about that.
Yeah, and I paid myself back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff that the back office is like about. These things are happening, but the common knowledge effect for those that are trying to start their own business based off their passion, providing for their family, or this just desire to go out on their own, that's why this podcast exists, because this is a transaction or a conversation that's just happening behind closed doors that just nobody's talking about. And so that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one thing that you mentioned is a lot of business owners don't realize is that they may be able to do that for themselves. And I guess that's the big picture, right? Is how do people start to learn this kind of thing as they are getting a business started, and just like, hey, I need to get the tools. I need to get a logo designed. I need to, get insurance. Where have you seen people actually even who's giving them the pointers about this stuff, Neil?
Yeah. I'll admit that it's opaque. It's definitely not transparent. Usually financial advisors, financial planners like myself, there's oftentimes this, they want the people who have millions of dollars to invest, that they are willing to just turn it over to them and let them handle all this stuff. So there's definitely a gap in people that can typically are targeted for this type of service, that are overlooking these small business owners. A financial advisor who's kind of focused on grow, or they work for a corporation that is telling them, hey, you've got a limited amount of your time. Don't waste your time with people who don't have a lot of money right now. I think that's a terrible way to do things in this business. And I think that's what causes those blind spots, is that nobody's really willing to help those people. So, I mean, it can be a little bit of a struggle and a little bit of a search. I mean, everyone who listens to this is in this situation or wants to learn more is welcome to reach out to me, and I'm happy to walk them through these things. But oftentimes, if it gets to a point where there's some recommendations that me as the advisor has to be accountable to, there could be some costs associated with building a financial plan for that particular person. But it's really just a matter of walking each client through that process and making sure it's the right thing for them, and showing them all the different ways that they can get that particular goal accomplished. Whether it's, I just want to save for my retirement and make sure that my family is safe. A number of different things that we can discuss when it comes to the K loan from yourself situation. I think any credible financial planner would be willing to have that discussion with someone. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be a cost associated with it, but I think that the upfront savings that you won't have to pay a small business loan interest and stuff like that can easily be overcome by paying for a financial plan.
And what I found with small business owners a lot of times is like, hey, I'm happy to pay if it's gonna make a difference for me. As small businesses, we're asking people to pay us. That's how commerce works, right?
Yeah.
So
What?
so as long as there's that return on it, I mean, that's the question that people ask us all the time in marketing, right? Is okay, if I'm trading my dollars for the service that you offer, am I going to be getting more dollars back for it? That's the goal. That's what we want to do, right? And feel really good about doing as people in business. So, okay, awesome. That's great.
Cool. Yeah. You want to try out a new segment, Neil?
Sure.
A little new segment. We call this segment "The Worst Advice I Ever Took." All right, we'll just kind of break into it. So, what's one piece of advice you took or have heard in your career around business, money, future planning that sounds smart but actually leads owners in the wrong direction?
Well, let's think about that for a minute. I know that there's a number of different examples. Do you have one? And then that'll give me some time to think about this.
Yeah, so I took some advice early in my career that I must work harder. I must just focus and grind and, you know, put my nose to the grindstone. And I learned a positive thing and a bad thing about that. Was the positive thing is I got a lot of stuff done and it helped propel my career. The bad things that I learned from that focus was damaging relationships with my wife. I didn't have kids at the time, damaging relationships with my friends, lost some friends through that period because I wasn't there for them. And so it propelled me in my career and for that I'm grateful. But the advice that I took was like grind, grind, grind. I had to build a lot of trust back up with my wife and rebuild those relationships and try to build some of those relationships with my friends. And that was, a really hard lesson, early in my career with all the hustle culture and the grind. And, I'm 29 now. And so early in my career, I was like 21. And like that was the world of business advice that I was getting at the time and just what I thought you had to do. So that was bad advice that I took.
Yeah. Yeah. That's insightful. And I certainly fell for the exact same thing and definitely regret it. And that even affected me later in life. I mean, to be honest, when I took the role out here to manage some of these branches, I don't think I asked the right questions. I was enticed by a lot of responsibility, a huge team, and just really thought like this is everything that I wanted, was to manage 30 different advisors and be in charge of 40 different people, this big region with a lot of that had a lot of cachet and respect. And what I didn't ask was how was this team led before I got here? What is this team's morale? And they were all suffering from exactly what you're talking about, just being completely driven by activity metrics. And I didn't understand the difference in culture that I wanted to bring to the table versus the culture that already existed. And so I think a piece of bad advice that maybe is kind of part of my personality, but that has been pointed out to me and later on by my wife and others, is that I was naive enough to just assume that everybody had the same expectations for culture and what the experience was going to look like that I did, and not asking those questions and not digging in a little bit further, not being a lot more skeptical about these different opportunities. Sort of, not to say that I wouldn't have taken the opportunity, but I would have known a lot. I would have known a lot more in advance, prior to selling our house in Denver, moving out here, and then being like, oh boy, this can be a really, really uphill climb to get the culture to where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm. What about you,
that'll
Joe?
be
What did you ever take any worst advice? Tell us
absolutely.
about your story.
Yes. Worst advice I ever took was back when I was a pastor, and fair, a little bit older than you are now, Zach. um, and probably early 30s, and was having you know, going through some struggles with some other people within the team. And one of our kind of mentors, he was an advisor to on the board of directors for the organization that we worked on. Really, his advice amounted to just blindly trust that everything's going to be okay. Blindly trust that everybody has, the best interests at heart and in mind. And I think it just wasn't true. And that was, as the director, what he said to do, and really came back to bite me and a lot of people by doing that. So I would say that was terrible advice, and I pretty much thought it was at the time, but he was also in in charge of me, and that was bad, and I would not say that. I don't think that, and there's so much that was mixed into with, well, you're supposed to be trusting and forgive and forget, which I don't really believe. I don't think forgive and forget are the same thing. Uh, but yeah, so that was a bad part for me, for sure. I want to go back to something though from earlier. We started talking about, that question that, when people start making money, when is the time for them to start investing? And you had that great point. No, start investing before you have the money. And that was some great advice that I got when I was young. My wife and I were just married, we didn't really have any money, and some of our wise mentors at that point said, "Start now," and so grateful that we did. But what about for those people? We do have a lot of those clients who are scaling right now. That I talked to somebody just recently and said, "Hey, 3 years ago I did 248,000. Last year, I did 497,000. This year, my goal is to hit one. The following year to hit two. I want a doubling, and I think that I'm at the size and trajectory where I can be doing that. And so people are starting to have a little bit more change in their pocket. And I mean, what would you say to somebody like that who is starting to make a bit more money than ever before? Where does where is that different for somebody like that as opposed to somebody who is W-2 employee? Um, where would you go from there, Neil?
Yeah. So I think it's about optimization. And once I'm assuming that the point that this person is at, you know, ideally they've already started to think about what the some of the basics like retirement planning, cash management, those sorts of things. So I think it's optimization around finding this maybe are going to be great for, I guess, kind of break things up. So you have your long goal of, let's say, retirement, legacy, what have you. And a lot of what we talked about originally kind of builds into that as far as what does my legacy look like? What does my retirement look like when I'm done with this business and I just want to sit on the beach and travel with my spouse, et cetera. And then you've got your kind of intermediate goals of where do I put that next dollar? Okay, I've got $100,000, or I've got my buffer in my bank account to pay payroll and to fund my growth and to pay my marketing guys.
That's
And
important.
so it's very important. One of the most important considerations. What do you do with that next dollar? Where does that next dollar go? How can I optimize this for investment purposes, or does it need to go towards some of these other goals that I have? And then the shorter term goals of just making sure that everything is working in harmony with each other. And a lot of it comes from that optimization, and a lot of it comes from delegating and and automation of that. You don't have to make a decision on, okay, I've got an extra $10,000 in my bank account. Oh, I have to remember to put that into the high yield money market, or I need to remember to put that into my retirement plan, or I need to remember to put that to save that in my tax payment account, whatever it is. I think a lot of those decisions you should have a plan around it. I'm not saying you need to hire someone like myself or a business manager to do those things for you, but it doesn't hurt at least to know where that next dollar needs to go, and that you take it off of your plate so you can focus on running your business and let all of those things handle themselves. Because after a while, I've worked with some small business owners where, there's 20 to 25 different accounts. They all had a really great purpose at the beginning, when things started to go great. And now that the money is not a problem anymore, there's more money than the business owner knows what to do with. You forget about which one of these 15 accounts do I need to put money in? Why did I open these in the first place? What does this look like? Why am I doing any of this? And then frozen with indecision and analysis paralysis, or just being lazy about it. And we spend so much time at the beginning counting every penny and making sure that and just hustling to make sure that everything's moving in conjunction. And then when there's an abundance, that laziness can really, it can cost a small business owner hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah.
For no reason other than, I forgot to do that. And now I've gotten, a fraction of 1% on $100,000. Just because I forgot, or I should have put this money into my retirement plan and offloaded that tax liability, or I should have contributed to that legacy trust focused on my company employee owned stock, or the stock that I own as the founder, and made sure that that's in the right type of account so that so they don't have to worry about it. If I decide to sell the company, something happens to me, I'm not going to get killed by estate planning issues, estate taxes, and legacy transition issues.
And I hear that happening to people who are at that point where they are making money and something happens, and that happens all the time, unfortunately, where, my gosh, my husband passed away, and I don't even know how to get into this stuff, and all of a sudden I have this huge bill. I thought that we were doing great, and we were, but I didn't even realize. When would you say is the time for somebody to transition, when they're like, just, hey, I'm just kind of, it's on autopilot. We set these things up to, hey, we probably need to, I need to start talking to my financial guy, financial gal. How often would you say? Like, what's your ideal when somebody is, bringing in good revenue, and they have some change to play with, and they need to optimize that? I mean, does somebody like you like to meet with those people once a year, once a quarter? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the first part of that I touched on earlier is to find someone that you trust. You want to find a financial advisor and a financial partner that is focused on your situation. They know you, and the business owner and the advisor are on the exact same page. They know what the plan is, what the strategy is, regardless of where things are. You want to build that relationship at the beginning so that you're not in a situation where the person is like, well, when you've got that big windfall, when you get your $1 million profit, then come talk to me and I'll tell you what to do with it. It's more of like, you want to have a working and trusting fiduciary relationship with that person that you trust, so that they're doing these things for you, not because they're going to earn more fees on it, but because they built the plan and you've agreed on that. And I would say that sort of communication is on demand. I mean, I would call it being on speed dial. I mean, if I have that type of relationship with someone, I would expect that they have a question, something happens, they need money, they want to put in money, they had a question on their taxes, that I'm on their speed dial. But a regular check-in, quarterly, probably at a minimum, for ongoing financial guidance is really what I prefer. And most of the time, small business owners, it's that speed dial situation where, sometimes I have to reach out and say, look, we're focused on optimization this year. We still got a laundry list of things that need to be taken care of. And I'm trying to fit into their calendar versus the other way around.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that fits so well to like how Joe and I approach, our role inside of businesses. We have to communicate consistently because we're not in the business. We're standing aside the business, ready to help you, and we need to understand what's going on. on a consistent basis for us to be able to pull the right levers to affect positive change, whether that's in generating more business or in your case is setting up a bright and consistent financial future. Because we got to know what's happening in the business.
Right. Yep.
And I'd say that's a mistake, which takes us into another segment that we see. A mistake that our clients will make sometimes is, we'll talk to somebody and, they just kind of make an offhand comment. Yeah, we're getting a lot of those jobs lately. Like, that's different from what you normally do, right? Yeah, but in the last 6 months, there's some industry coming in and people have been calling and it's kind of become a big profit center for us. I wish we could get more. Like, tell us about that, right? Like, tell us when something's changing in the business because we can optimize for that. I'm guessing the same for you. But the founder's blind spot is something that is this next segment that I want to ask you about. And we all see this. You see these incredibly smart, high income business owners who consistently get it wrong when it comes to, personal versus business finances. What's something that you do see them doing? What's a mistake that you see people making when it comes to finances? And maybe it's just they just don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. Where's a mistake that you see people running into that?
Yeah. So it's, this is titled The Blind Spot, but I think it's just that. I mean, there's general ignorance around investing in general. A lot of that is propagated by the last 30 to 40 years of the financial services. We all remember the Wall Street greed is good kind of mentality. All these people crammed into a room making cold calls and telling people to buy a stock. They don't know anything about them. They don't know anything. They're just trying to make a sale. And then that transition to kind of a light advice type model where it was like, well, yeah, I mean, I can tell you to open up this type of account, and then I'm gonna, sell you kind of a one size fits all investment for it. And to transition to today, where it's turning into a relationship business. I mean, people can go online and find the best performing stock or the best performing mutual fund, the exchange traded fund, whatever it is, in a heartbeat. But I think that there's a lot of the blind spot gets created because people assume that it's like it was before. Like, oh, I talked to a guy years ago. He sold me a mutual fund. And I never talked to him again. And it was kind of a pain and it was kind of uncomfortable. I don't want to go through that again. So I'll just not deal with it. And then there's the approach is like, well, I know that this stock is the greatest thing since sliced bread and it's been going up every single day and it's made millionaires out of all my friends. I'm just going to buy that stock and not really worry about anything else. I don't need to deal with financial planners or anything like that because I know that this investment is the best thing for me. So it's kind of the blind spot is realizing that this business is changing. Not all advisors. I like to put myself in the category of being relationship and really I have a fiduciary responsibility to clients, whether I'm managing money for them or just building a financial plan. Any recommendation that I give has to be in their best interest. And that's not how the industry has always worked. So that puts the relationship kind of in the forefront. And once a client or a business owner understands that I'm on their side, and that's the only side that I can be on. I don't have a closet full of annuities and expensive mutual funds to sell them. If I'm going to make a recommendation, it's got to be in their best interest. And so once the business owner can develop that kind of relationship, it kind of removes that blind spot and builds that trust to know that, hey, this is where I am today. This is where I want to be tomorrow. I'm willing to, because you understand my situation and I trust your advice, I'm willing to listen to you on these things so that, we kind of call people out on it. So I think it's overcoming that, that blind spot of feeling like the industry is the same as it used to be and that, that it's still a very transactional business with a lot of costs and a lot of fees, that feeling that you only have one or the other. You can have high costs, high fees, and great help, or do it yourself and just ignore it. The happy medium is right in the middle. And there's firms like mine and many others out there that's where they live and that's what they're transitioning into. And then I would say as kind of a part of that is that there's there's got to be a realization that the business, you know, you're not going to be a part of the business at some point. And when you're not, and when you don't want the stress of it anymore, and you've grown enough, it's turned into a legacy asset for yourself. You've got to have this diversified portfolio of liquid assets and real estate and these different things that are going to sustain you when the business is over. And you have to prepare well in advance for any kind of transition to a new owner, the next generation, or just an outright sale. It's not something that can be done like a couple years in advance, and all of a sudden you're going to get this $50 million buyout. How do you prevent against that? But I think business owners don't look at that because they feel like it's going to be a waste of their time. They can do it on their own, or it's going to be too expensive. The brokers and the financial advisors of the past were really just in it for them and not looking at it from a fiduciary viewpoint.
Sure. So much of what you're sharing, Zach, I don't know if you feel this way, but so much of what you're sharing sounds so much like what we deal with in marketing, right? The kind of some outdated strategies and some strategies that people sell now that don't work, and the need for trust, and also people sometimes saying, well, I can, do it better on my own. Yeah, you'll probably get the result that you're going to get on your own. So I hear you on that.
Yeah. I've trusted both of you and used your advice, and I can honestly tell you that I wouldn't have gotten through the first step of developing my own marketing strategy. I mean, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Well, I had no idea what you were talking about half the time, but I learned a ton. I mean, like I was just soaking it up. I'm like, man, this guy is, obviously you can tell that you've been around for a long time. You've had lots of conversations with lots of different business owners at different places. And this has kind of been a few moments where I was like, 401k and some of the lessons that you shared and some of the strategies that you've shared, are just, maybe it's just I'm not privy to it, but I just hard to believe that this is common knowledge for, many of the listeners that are going to be tuning in today. Um, and so thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a good time.
Yeah. And so, I kind of wanted to just close us out. We're going to save you from any of our other gimmicky segments and stuff like that. But, I just want to give you space to Neil, anything that we maybe didn't cover that you feel like would be important for our audience, give you a minute or two to just kind of, the floor is yours to say anything that you want to say. How are people going to get in contact with you if they have questions? Go ahead and close us out here, Neil.
Great. Well, I feel like I rambled pretty well on that last one, on that last question. But I mean, I guess I would say from the world that I came in from, it was, retail brokerage services. It was very transactional, and we just didn't even have the time or really even the authority to really help people. So for the listeners out there, what I'll say is that you want to enter into a fiduciary relationship with anyone, a financial advisor or financial planner, because that unlocks that trust factor and that feeling that every piece of advice or recommendation that person gives, that I would give in that situation, it has to be in your best interest. And I do feel like a lot of these topics and strategies that we've discussed today have been kind of under lock and key. And I don't think that that's deliberate, like, oh, we're not going to tell anyone about these different strategies. I think it's because there hasn't been a lot of people who focused on small business owners, people just getting started, people who are in transition. A lot of advisors like myself feel like they only have time for the big whales. There's 80 to 90% of people who need financial help, don't have millions of dollars, but they still need the help. So, you can come to a firm like mine and come talk to me, and we can have a great conversation. And I'm not trying to hold these strategies under lock and key, and not present them to you. I've had, as you said, Zach, thousands upon thousands of conversations with small business owners and individual investors. I'm happy to explain generally any of these strategies and where you can look for help. So it's something that I'm passionate about. I wouldn't say that I woke up one day and just said, I just want to, I want to answer any financial question that somebody has. But after going through the mental gymnastics of the transactional brokerage world for so long, I do personally have that desire to bring these concepts to more people, because I do feel like it might not ever be common knowledge or common sense, but it's definitely something that there should be more proactive access to it, where people trust the information that they're receiving, and without feeling like, okay, well, what's in it for that other person? What's in it for this advisor? How much is this going to cost me? And I feel like once you break down that barrier, that the information is going to flow. We'll get more trust in this industry, and I think it's really going to help small businesses and small business owners and individual investors who just want to retire and live comfortably. So for me, I work for a company called Rigdon Capital Strategies. That's RIGDEN. And they are based in Denver, but we have 3 or 4 different advisors like myself who are nationwide. I'm in Kansas City. I can help people out anywhere. I don't know if you want me to go further than that with how to get in touch with me.
Yeah. If you can share maybe your email address so that people can reach out to you if they have questions, if they want to talk to somebody, if they're like, hey, I just need somebody who I can trust. Seems like, these guys trust you and you have a good vibe. So share that. We'd love for you to be a resource to our listeners.
Yeah, you can look me up on LinkedIn, and I'm sure I'm going to be, after your guys' help, I'm going to be at the top of all the search engines. So
that's right.
It's Neil, Neil Connolly, Connolly. That's how you can find me on LinkedIn. Email address is Neil, Neil at Rigdon, RIGDEN capital.com. That's also our website. And phone number is, I do have one for the Kansas City metro area. I've got 2, but the one that is used most frequently is the Denver phone number. It's 3.
And I'll link all of those. I'll link the LinkedIn, the phone number, the website. I'll link all of those things in the show notes. Joe, you want to take us out today? You want to close us up?
Yeah, man. Hey, Neil, thanks so much for jumping on here. From protecting people from bear and bee sting attacks in the mountains of North Carolina to helping people with something, obviously, this is a huge deal, right? That all of us as Americans, and I would think probably in a lot of countries, are thinking through what's the long term here? Where am I going to end up? And I just need somebody who I can trust, because I left to myself Joe Flammer a few years ago. I read what's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, I'm gonna be a guru on this stuff. Read some other financial books and started investing for myself. And like everything I invested in was based on some advice that I, read and subscribed to a website was terrible. So fortunately, I had have some people who I can trust who are a little bit smarter than I am, a lot smarter than I am. So yeah, I think having somebody like you who can answer those questions, who can be the resource, who can help figure out what the plan is, how can we navigate that in a professional and a trustworthy manner, I think is going to be huge. So super grateful that you joined us today. I hope to see you tomorrow, probably in the gloom, maybe if it's not raining out too hard, early in the morning, for a good workout, man. But thanks so much for joining us today, Neil.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys. It was
hope to have you back.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks.
Thanks, bud. Bye.